Okay, so I'm just going to redevelop this template. As you can see, it has some responsive issues. If you press F12 on Chrome, you can also check on mobile what it looks like, and as you can see, it doesn't work well with any devices, particularly. Also, it has problems, it seems, with desktop as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recreate this template and then connect it to Vue.js so that as soon as we submit, it actually submits the data. Okay, so first things first, I have the folder here with all the images. This is the font file. This is the font we are supposed to be using. This Avenir will be inside, should be these text over here. As at the moment there's not that font. It's okay. Then we have the images here as well. The footer and the image on top. I think there's an invisible WinA. If you see this, it says win a meal. On this it doesn't show correctly because this has a white background, but anyway. Okay, and this is the HTML file. This is the HTML file I actually opened to view this. And yes. Okay, so what I'm gonna start with is just going to start off fixing the template, but like usually I like to install the Laravel project first. So in my workspace folder, I'm just going to go to Udemy courses, or actually Udemy projects. I'm going to install a new Laravel project over here. So, like I normally do, you have to excuse me if you want to skip this part, if you already installed Laravel and so on. I just like to redo every step so that if you guys miss something, you know, it's always good to, you know, redo it again. So I'm going to call this project tap a meal. So let's create open PowerShell window here. I'm going to remove block. I'm going to call it tap meal. And now we just have to wait for the project to install. Okay, so once I'm done, I have to go navigate within this project. As soon as I'm in here, I have to right click and go to my PowerShell window. And now I want to go ahead and install Laravel Vue JS. So before I can do that, I can say composer require Laravel UI. Now I just have to wait a couple of what feels like days, but yeah, it's minutes, but yeah. Okay, so once that's done, I just want to install the scaffolding for Vue.js. So I'm just going to say PHP artisan UI Vue, and this is not important now, but I'm also going to install the scaffolding for authorization. But for this particular project, it's not necessary, but I might be using it on a later stage. So let's press enter. Okay, so that is created successfully. So now we have the project here. And what I'm going to do now is move these files from the previous project. Let me quickly navigate to that project. As you can see here, we have all the images, and I want to place this inside a public directory. So let's quickly do it this way. Okay, so if I go to my public, I want to create an images folder. So let's go ahead and call it images. Inside here, I'm going to drop all the images inside here. There's one thing you have to note. It's not really important for this part, but if you look at this image size, this one and this one is rather big, and this would be loaded every time someone opens the link. So you want this less than a megabyte, or even less than that. It should be around 400 kilobytes, as well as this one. Okay, so I'm going to drag these images over, or actually just these two images over to Photoshop try to get the file size smaller. So I'm just going to drag that in. I'm going to start with this one. I'm going to say image size. I'm going to make it just 1920 since that's the basic size. The quality will remain very good, as you can see over here. As soon as I go to export, save for web, I will just change this to JPEG medium. Let's make the quality 16, which is acceptable. You see the size over here, it estimates the size about 731 kilobytes. We want to actually get that down. Let's make this 40. Let's see the quality. The quality still seems decent. As you can see, the quality is still decent, but the size is considerably smaller. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to save it in my optimized folder. Let's navigate to that folder. Okay, yeah. So public images optimized. I'm just going to save the background here. Let's see the difference between the sizes. So it was 13 megabytes. Now let's just delete that. Now it's only 426 kilobytes, and it still looks decent, and will help a lot with it will help a lot with the speed of the site. So the next step is this image over here. I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm not going to change the width. I'm just going to leave it like that, but I'm going to also export to web and make the file size smaller. So it's also like 435 kilobytes. So let's save that. Also in the same folder, optimized. Click there, and as you can see, the file sizes are considerably smaller. Combined, they're only 1 mega or almost 1 megabyte, whereas these two combined was 20 megabytes. So I'm just going to delete these two and use these, and click delete. Okay, doesn't really matter if that image is still, that folder is still there. I think it's because the Photoshop is still open. Okay, no, okay, close, optimize, delete. Why it's still open somewhere? Okay, doesn't matter, but anyway. Okay, so the next step is to create the new file. So what I'm going to do is create a new file over here on the resources and views. I'm actually going to use the home blade. So if you open Visual Studio, I'm going to Udemy projects and tap mill, and then we go to that folder I created. Okay, so inside here we have resources, views, home. I'm going to completely redo this. Start with a complete blank HTML page. In head, there's title. And I'm just going to call it tap mill. All right. So the logic is, as soon as I open the home controller, I'm just going to make sure it doesn't need authorization. I just wanted to navigate to the home page. So let's start the server and we should get a blank page. So let's go here, start the PHP server, PHP artisan serve. If you go here, it says Laravel. So that's not the correct root. Since under roots, we actually say that as soon as they go to the root link, it will only say welcome, but that's not what we want. So I'm just going to go ahead and comment that out and just change this one to go to the home control to index. So it will go to this page, then it will go to index and then home. So let's see if that works. If I refresh, there we go. So there's the title tab Emil with nothing inside it. So the next step is to actually get Bootstrap inside my HTML folder or my HTML file. So let's do that. What I'm going to do now is npm install. And now I'm going to do npm run watch. Actually, before I do that, let's open two tabs. I'm going to use this one for PHP artisan serve and this one to do the npm run watch. So when we do an npm run watch, like I explained in my previous lecture somewhere, it will create inside the resource, inside the public, it will create a CSS folder with a JS folder. Out there, it created it, and it has app.css and js.css, and this contains Bootstrap and jQuery and everything you need, because this is all defined inside resource JS app. As you can see, here is Bootstrap included, and in Vue JS is also included. And if we go to this SAS folder, when you go to app.css, SCSS, and then you can see it actually imports everything also need for Bootstrap as well. So this is really nifty. So the next step is to actually include that to our HTML file. So if I go to resources, views, home, I actually want to include the CSS folder here. So it's going to be link href /css /app.css, and the relevance is style sheet. Actually, I don't think you need to do that. I think that's not anymore. Anyway, so this is reference to, if you go to public CSS and app.css, it's referencing that. So that's now included. Now the next step is we have to include the JavaScript file. Okay. Always at the end of the document on the body, I usually insert it here. So it's script.source. Inside the source, it's js.app.js. And that's it. That's all you need. So if you go ahead and refresh and look at the source, you will see it's included here. If you click on this should link well. Okay, that looks good. If you click here, it should also, yes, it includes everything. Since we are using Vue.js, I'm just going to make a container div that will have the ID of app. because inside this div it will always check whether there's any Vue.js components. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I'm just going to install the style sheet here. That is not the perfect place, but for this lecture I think it's a good idea just to leave the style sheet here to show you how to style everything inside here. So I'm just going to create a styles sheet, and inside here let's start with the full screen background. As you can see with the previous version, you'd see it had a full background, which was actually perfectly done. There was nothing wrong with it. I'm just going to do the same thing. Okay, so to start that, I'm just going to say HTML, because I want the background to be on the HTML background. URL, inside URL I want this image over here. Let me see where it is. Public images. I want, let's just close this folder for now. I just want this background. So it is images background.jpg. No repeat, center fixed. Then with the WebKit, just doing it for most of the different types of browsers. Okay, so let's see if that works, or if I did mess up somewhere. HTML body let's check that out. Let's try the first body. Okay, so this works. For some reason, I'm not sure why it didn't work with HTML, but it does work with body. But anyway, let's continue. So the next step is I want this centered. So if I go back to the previous one, they had the block in the middle with the form inside. So I'm going to try to make the same thing with Bootstrap using what we call a grid system. So how the grid system works is that you have a grid inside here. So first I'm going to create a container, class container. Inside here, I'm just going to create a grid system that is only on a normal device, like 30%. So it's called MD, let's make it 4. For this testing purpose, I'm going to, make a style as well. I'm just going to make it the height of 100%, so the height is completely to the top, and I'm just going to make the background completely black for now. So let's see what happens. Oh, I see I misspelled. I know a lot of students actually said my spelling really bothers them, but it's with the territory. Okay, so we have the black here. Okay, so it's not centered. We want this centered, and I think we can actually make it a bit more width, give it a bit more width. So to make it more, to make the width more, I can actually say call md 5 or 6. Let's make it 5. So if you make it 5, it's going to be a bit more width. And now I want to make an offset so it's actually, you know, more in the center. So I can say call, or actually offset md. Let's try 3. Let's see what happens. Okay, yeah, it seems like it's in the center. It looks perfect for me. And now we can actually do the same thing with the background image for this part. So I'm just going to call this, let's make it the ID of, let's say middle container form, or middle form container. Inside here, I'm just going to put it there, and everything that's in the style over here, I'm just going to also insert it over there. So I'm just going to remove the style over here, and if I, okay, let's just enter there. I'm going to just copy this whole thing because I want it's kind of the same thing happening for that div as well. The only difference is it's a different image. So I'm going to use the my image. It's this image. So if I go back to home, I can just replace that with the my image, and let's see if that works. Wow, that works. It doesn't look exactly the same as hers, this one here. Maybe I should try something different. Maybe I can just say background, not the cover, center fixed. Let's see if that works. It looks a bit better, I guess. It seems like it's a bit zoomed in. But yeah, let's not worry about that too much for now. Okay, so next step is I want this win a meal. So on the top here, let's create a form. Let's create a Bootstrap form. So for now, I'm just going to say form and kill the form over here, end it, I mean. And then I'm going to make different groups. So div class form group, and inside here I just want to check that example, so it has the name and then it has the input field. So with a form group I can do a label and say for what the label is for. In this instance, let's see, I'm just going to call it username. So I'm gonna say it's for username, and then end the label here. Just copy that and insert it into the label, so that's going to be the label. And then the input field ID is username. It should be exactly the same as the for, because this means that this is connected to this ID. Also remember to make a name. I usually keep the name also the same as the ID, so it's username. Class I will call form control, because that is then Bootstrap automatically styles it for you. So let's take a look what it looks like. back to mine. So you can see there's the handler, here's the input field. Okay, but I mean, this doesn't look anything like this yet. So first step first, let's insert that image. So on top of the form, I'm just going to create the div class row. And inside here, class call md12. So inside here, I'm just going to insert the image. Now the image is probably this header one. Yes, it is the header one. I'm just going to copy and paste it here. Header, okay, it's header.png. So it is images and header.png with a capital H. Then we can go back to this. Now this doesn't look right. The image is way too big. So how can we make it responsive? Well, it's a couple of ways, but what I usually do is I give it a max width. So the max width I usually give it around is like 70%. So inside here, I will always say style text align center, so the image is centered, and inside the image I would say style width of actually max width equals 70%. If you go back to this, wow, this looks actually better. Almost exactly the same as this one. So now we have the problem where this doesn't look really nice. It's black and almost non-existent over here, and we want it to look it like that. So let's quickly go back to this. I'm going to call my form. I'm just going to call it ID of my form. On style, I'm just going to say my form, and all the labels will be the color of white. And of course, I want it to be bigger. So let's make the font size around, let's say 20 pixels. Let's see how that looks like. That looks already a bit better. Let's make it a bit more bigger. Let's make it around 25 pixels. Yes, okay, so that looks better already. So I'm just going to copy and paste this for all these. So just going to copy. How much were there? 1, 2, and the third one is an image. Okay, so let's make it 3. Okay, let's just that. I'm just going to go through all of them. And which is the other one? It is city, town. And let's say, just call it city. And obviously, okay, this is actually, I have to completely delete because it's going to be a select. With the class still being form control. And select. Inside the options, I'm just going to say Ventuk Swakopmund and Walvis Bay, I think. Let's make sure. Well, Walvis Bay is 2 words. Who would have known? Okay. So let's see what that looks like. If I go back here to mine, now it looks like this. Okay. Alright, I have a fourth handler, which is the image, and let's just fix that. What is the upload image? Okay. Let's make the type, input type. One thing you guys have to do, on default it always selects text, but for base practice always make the type like text if it's text, and otherwise you could, there is a couple of types you can actually insert in the input. Like for example, in this example the input type is actually file, and let's say image. So we go back here and I go back to this. This looks a bit better. Now I can say upload image. If you click on that, you can select whatever image. Now all we need to do is add a submit button. So Google, Bootstrap actually has a default button, which is, oh, I like it a lot. So I can just create, like on top of the image, I usually do div class row, div class call md12, inside there I have a button, with the class of button, and the button is primary, and I can say submit or send. I think they have submit maybe, or send, I can't remember. Okay, they have submit, so let's make it submit. So that doesn't look nice because I can't spell, but actually let's say make it button success, then it's green as it should be. Okay, so I want to actually center that, or maybe I don't know, they actually have it left on the bottom here. Let me think. Oh, this is actually weird. Does this weird thing over here. Okay, so I actually gonna leave it on the left over here, and all I want to do now is insert that logo over here. So what I'm going to do is this. Again, I'm going to create a div class row. Inside here, I'm actually going to create a bunch of grids. So, not a bunch of grids, 2 grids. Class, the one is supposed to be, let's make it 8. Call md8. And I'm going to make one that's 4. If you guys want to learn more about grids, I will make a lecture that concentrates on grids itself, or you can actually just look it up. The grid system is really powerful. But yeah, okay, source. So it's gonna be my footer. So it's images footer.png. Okay, let's check that out. So because that didn't work well at all. Oh yes, because I never actually gave it a max height, max width. So I'm just going to say style max width. Let's make it 100% since it's already small-ish. So that's a bit too small. So we can actually just work the grid a bit different. I'm just going to say, okay, let's make the grid, let's make it equal. Let's make it 6 by 6. So it should be half of the page, or not the page, but this column over here. So as you can see, it's bigger. How the grid system works is now, if I hover over here, it has this space. So this is the one space and this is the other one. If you want it a little bit bigger, we can actually just do this, make it 4 and 8. And yep, it's bigger. So the difficult part is that I assume they want it on the bottom. And there is a way to do this, but it may mess up with the responsiveness. As you can see, now it's actually very nice and responsive. It works with basically any device. So if you have a mobile, you can actually still access it via mobile, and if you have a desktop, it will still look nice. And if your device is smaller, then you can actually just scroll down. Well, this is actually a problem. As you can see, this actually breaks down, so we can quickly fix this. Remember here I said the max height, or the height is 100%. So what we are going to do now is say that the minimum height is 100%. So that should actually fix this. Okay, so that actually looks nice as well. So now it looks good because now it's on the bottom. But the problem is that as soon as the device is higher, then it will stick here. So how are we going to fix that problem? I actually don't know. Let's try something. Hey, it's PewDiePie. Anyway, let's see. We could do something like this style. Position absolute, or actually make it relative and say bottom equals 0. Let's see if that solves anything. And if we say position absolute, that seems to do the trick. But this is what happens then. So we can actually do a very difficult script to actually fix that. But I'm not going to do that for now. For now, I think it's okay being the way it is. Otherwise, it gets a bit difficult to fix that. But anyway, okay, this is basically the first part of how to submit or to install the sheet. In the next class, I'm going to make this submit the information. Okay, thank you very much. See you in the next class. Actually, before finishing this lesson, I actually forgot, like explained in the documentation, or we should replace these fonts with the font they supplied, which is this Avenir font. So So I usually use this website to generate web fonts. If I click on the font here, I can navigate to the space where I save the font, which is, let me see, over here, and I have this Avenir font. So I just have to check that. Okay, let's also do that. Okay, so as soon as I generated the font, I can download the package. I have all the fonts over here. I navigate back to my project. I just create a folder over here called fonts. I'm just going to call this Avenir, and I'm going to drop everything over here. I just want to see if this is the right font. Yes, this looks good. If we go back to our folder over here, all I need to do is say, let's do it on the top of the document, add font face, font family. I'm just going to call it Avenir, and the source of this is URL, and then wherever the file is. Let me quickly see. Fonts. Yes, let's copy this one. Copy path. Okay, so I can just, okay, not that path, but yes, let's just make this 4 slashes. So for the labels, we already said here, so I'm just going to say font family, and I'm going to call it this one here. So if I go back to my project, you can see it is the Avenir font. And that's how you add a custom font to your HTML. Okay, thank you. See you next class. Actually, before finishing this lesson, I actually forgot, like explained in the documentation, or we should replace these fonts with the font they supplied, which is this Avenir font. So I usually use this website to generate web fonts. If I click on the font here, I can navigate to the space where I save the font, which is, let me see, over here, and I have this Avenir font. So I just have to check that. Okay, let's also do that. Okay, so as soon as I generated the font, I can download the package. I have all the fonts over here. I navigate back to my project. I just create a folder over here called fonts. I'm just going to call this Avenir, and I'm going to drop everything over here. I just want to see if this is the right font. Yes, this looks good. If we go back to our folder over here, all I need to do is say, let's do it on the top of the document, add font face, font family. I'm just going to call it Avenir, and the source of this is URL, and then wherever the file is. Let me quickly see. Fonts. Yes, let's copy this one. Copy path. Okay, so I can just, okay, not that path, but yes, let's just make this 4 slashes. So for the labels, we already said here, so I'm just going to say font family, and I'm going to call it this one here. So if I go back to my project, you can see it is the Avenir font. And that's how you add a custom font to your HTML. Okay, thank you. See you next class.